Welcome to Balanced Life with Debbie Carlin Boyle. Conversations connecting to a healthier you. The show that gives you all the latest and greatest health and wellness information to inspire you to live a life of balance and joy. Debbie Carlin Boyle is a health and nutrition coach, personal trainer, and fitness instructor who helps her clients live in balance with everything that feeds us, in addition to the food on our plate. Please welcome your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome on this March afternoon, Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This is Balanced Life, conversations that are connecting to a healthier you with me, your host, Debbie Carlin Boyle. We have conversations about everything about how to live your best life under the title of health and well-being, and we have one of those shows for you today, so I thank you for joining us. Before we get started, I want to invite you to become part of this conversation, because ideally this conversation relates to a lot of people, women specifically for today, who are in the dating scene over 40. So if you're listening, I want you to take down this phone number. We're here at 323-524-2599. And we want you to call in, ask a question, make a comment. We also want to hear your dating stories and any struggles you've had or successes, because that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. So having said that, we're going to get started with my guests. And today's show, like I said, is all about finding love after 40 and why it's so challenging to find that special one. We're going to dig into what it's like to be dating as a conscious woman and why it seems to be harder to find lasting love for us. So to mix things up a bit today, we're going to have a little panel discussion, and we're asking you, like I said, to become part of it. So if you're in the dating scene and you can relate to our discussion today, again, we want you to join in by calling and becoming part of this conversation, which, again, the number is 323-524-2599. It's also up on the screen if you're watching us. To help moderate and kick us off today is relationship specialist and professional coach Gabriella Taylor. Gabriella is a relationship specialist and the founder of Extraordinary Love Transformational Educational Programs. Not only has she been in the field of transforming consciousness since 1994, she's spent over 1,000 hours interviewing women around the world to design a proven process combining modern psychology, neuroscience, and ancient spiritual principles that bridges the gap that keeps conscious women separate from the loving relationship they deserve. And joining us on the panel today is Gina Pressman Elardo. Gina is a former producer on the Emmy Award-winning children's series Reading Rainbow. After meeting her husband, she put her career on hold to raise her 2 children. During her 22-year marriage, she has lived in Utah and then Paris, where she subsequently raised her boys. Wanting an environmental change to indulge the physical and cultural activities that she enjoys, Gina moved to Santa Monica, California 3 years ago. Still in the dating scene, Gina is here to discuss her adventures in the quest to find love. So, without further ado, will you please welcome to my show my guests, Gabriella Taylor and Gina Pressman. Hi, girls.
Hi.
Our audience is clapping for you. They live in our walls. So, hi there. Thank you both for joining me today. I know we talked about this quite a while ago. Gina and I, we attended a little workshop that you had at your beautiful home in Malibu about connecting to love, finding love. And it was very potent and very almost cathartic for me, I have to say. I can only speak for myself. And we had already talked about ahead, because you've been so busy, so we talked about ahead that in March we would be doing this show. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show is because I am myself, as you know, in the dating scene. I'm over 60. I have a lot of friends and women that I talk to because I live in a lot of locker rooms based on what I do for a living. And have a lot of angst. You know, a lot of the women I speak to have angst over the roller coaster that they're sort of living in the dating scene. So I thought I would try to put together a couple of people that were supposed to be on the panel. Dates have changed for them and for us, and so they weren't able to physically be here today, but hopefully we'll get some people to call in and ask those questions. But they're frustrated, or they've had success and what they thought was going to be their one last love didn't work out. So the frustration returns. So, and it's a different criteria, as we know, dating at this age and this stage in life than it is in your 20s and 30s. So I'd like to start with a little bit of background on how you became a relationship specialist. And then, Gina, we're going to talk a little bit with you on, a little bit about your foibles into the whole dating scene. But first, and then I'm going to kind of have you take it over based on the little headline titles that we have to talk about. So, Gabriella, how did you become a relationship specialist? And what is it you do for people, women specifically?
That's such a great question. To me, it's really this relationship with life, and my life in particular, that led me into this arena through the path of pain. I endured years of sexual abuse. And as a result of that, as a young woman, I had no sense of self. I had no sense of identity other than one that was perpetually in pain, having to do with a relationship with men. I felt unsafe, unseen, uncared for. I had no idea what boundaries even were, what I needed or wanted. I didn't even know how to locate what my truth was. So really, my process of learning how to restore and discover how to connect places inside of me that previously felt so injured or shut down or deeply scarred, my process of learning how to connect with the healing energy, loving energy, learn how to repair some of the places inside that felt broken, that led me into psychology. I hold my master's degree in psychology. And that really led me into exploring what is this territory. Relationships are the cornerstone of life.
Absolutely.
We turn to them for connection, companionship, communion. So many things. And for so many of us, the model that we were shown is filled with heartbreak, divorce, poor communication, hurt feelings. So to me, both through the virtue of my own pain and my own commitment to sort of crossing the bridge to get to the other side, I've discovered what worked for me and subsequently has worked for countless other women over the years. So.
That's so commendable, I have to tell you, because you didn't have to take this route. You just took the upside, really, and just took something that was very horrible in your life, very tragic, and you turned it around. And not only did you turn it around, but you took it to help others as well in helping yourself. And that is very difficult to do. I have to commend you on that. It's so remarkable. And it just is, it just touches me into my core, and I'm sure to the people who come in contact with you that know any part of that story. So thank you. I just say thank you, because it isn't the same working with somebody who doesn't know what you know and hasn't come from where you've come, and what you've done is, and look at you, this beautiful, vibrant woman who helping others to help them, like you said. Finding love is really what connects us to everything else.
And I'm 10 years into an extraordinary relationship, which is the living proof of what's possible for me.
Yes, which is so beautiful, because you're about to get married.
We are.
You've gone through some bachelorette parties and some showers and all kinds of wonderful things in the last several months. So you're seeing the upside, the positive side, and I'm so happy for you. I really am. You are glowing from the inside out, from the outside in, and I follow you on all of your social platforms so I can see where you're going, and it's just remarkable. And I'm really, really, really happy for you. And I thank you for taking the time to come here to discuss something that I think is a really important subject. So Gina, who is a friend of mine, also somebody that I've connected with in the fact that we have different but similar stories in sort of, I guess you could call it our frustrations with dating life. And I've been in the dating scene now for almost 8 years. Gina, how long have you been dating?
At least 10.
At least 10.
both in France and in the United States.
Right. So you've had two different kinds of cultural experiences.
But at different stages of my sort of life. So they're very different.
And if you were to sum it up, let's say, in a word or a sentence on what this last 10 years has been like for you, how would you sum that up in terms of?
It's an adventure.
I mean, it's had really an extraordinary upside, and also some real frustration. Both of those are true, and I think what I'm looking for has also changed. In the last 10 years. Because my life is quite different now than it was 10 years ago. That's correct. Yeah. It's funny how we evolve. And as we evolve, like when you first become single, for me, I was in a 35-year relationship. So I knew nothing else except the one man that I was with, between dating him, being engaged, being married, raising a family. And right away, I didn't want to date. And then right after that, all I wanted to do was have fun. And then after I stopped sort of objectifying myself, then I slowed down and wanted to find real, long-lasting love. And that's where I started to fumble. And that's where that's why one of the topics that we're calling this show is why conscious women have a harder time finding lasting love. So when I saw the title, Gabriella, that you created for this topic, I thought, oh, yeah, I am a conscious woman. Why am I having a hard time finding? It was okay it was easy to find fun and adventure in the beginning, right? And now the lasting love is the more difficult thing. And we are both conscientious women. We're aware of what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it in all facets of life and in our dating scene. So if we could talk a little bit about that heading and what it is that, what it is about the common misconceptions, and if we can debunk some of those misconceptions, that women take with them that stop them from moving forward once they meet someone, or what they're I don't know whether you call them bullet points or, whatever or criteria, or what it is that you have in finding true love.
Well, let's give some context around this, right? Because studies actually do show that conscious women have a harder time with relationship happiness than people. And when I say conscious, I want to just sort of, again, give context
identify
for it.
That, yeah.
It's like that is for those of us that are called to the path of personal development. We do our inner work. We explore our psychological matrix, our condition patterns, our belief system. Those of us that also have a spiritual calling, where we know that there is something greater within us that has put us here, and that there is some higher nature, higher force, higher organizing, divine, fabric of life that is influencing all of us. So a conscious woman, as I understand, is a woman who's really on this path of awakening, of exploring what it is that I've bought into believing about myself that's not true, that I can lay down, and where can I connect more fully with what is true about me, that I am a loving being. And so conscious women, it's this interesting, we're at an interesting time on the planet because the models everywhere are changing. The model for relationship is changing. The model for how a woman regards herself and holds herself as a parent in the workforce, as a woman who's not being objectified or sexualized or, ruled by the beauty myth. Like there's all these ways where our very relationship with what it means to be a woman, let alone in relationship, it's changing. We want more than what our parents had, with what our grandparents had.
Thought.
Yes, all of this is true. However, my experience has been that I would say 90% of the men that I've dated are not there.
Because they're not conscious men.
Right.
They haven't.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they're part of
this
previous generation, and they haven't evolved in the same way
that we have.
Which makes it so there's
so much harder.
a lot harder.
We were just talking about that on the way here today, because someone that Gina had dated about a year ago or so, on and off, is now dating another acquaintance, a friend of mine. And we had talked about big reason why that didn't go forward was because he wasn't aware. He hadn't done the work from the inside out that Gina has done.
I saw him as someone who was stuck, right? I mean, I just saw him as someone who was incredibly stuck. And I mean, the fact that he was getting a divorce, I thought was wonderful, but he was still stuck. And I just feel like I'm so far beyond that, right? I didn't want to be with somebody who I felt like I was going to end up coaxing him and coaching him, and
you didn't want to do that in that relationship. It wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example of what you're talking about.
It's a great example because, again, we are at a time where we have one foot, let's call it, in the old paradigm, which is this feeling of displeasure, disconnection, being disappointed, frustrated, hopeless, upset, whatever. And we have one foot in the new paradigm, which recognizes that inside of us, we have the capacity to choose new experiences, open our mind and let go of certain mindsets or belief systems that have held us back. We have choice. So we're alive at a time when often we're straddling two worlds. And what I found why a lot of conscious women struggle is because while we have a lot of phenomenal conceptual awareness, we're connected to a higher power, there are ways that our conditioned programmed patternings are still operating out through these deeply held assumptions or filters that limit our perceptions of what we're seeing in life. And again, I don't know what it is for you or how it is for you. This is more of a possibility to check it out as to what I've found what supports is when you say these things. I'm curious, where are you coming from inside? Like, what's the feeling behind the statement of
frustration? Right.
And so how do
total frustration because there is not this consciousness and there is not this expansiveness or the sense that this is someone who is capable of evolving.
So maybe he's not, but inside of you, what makes me wonder is knowing that we're alive on a planet with 8 billion people, knowing that in my experience, in my world, and in the circles that I run in, I see a phenomenal amount of men that are equally devoted and committed to doing this work. So it makes me curious.
And where are they?
They're everywhere, right? But and you ladies, I think you're speaking so beautifully to what we're up against, right?
Right, I know. That's why I'm doing this show.
Yeah.
But let me also say this. That I have absolutely no regrets and no sense of, boy, if only, I wasn't ready, or that's the one that got away, or none of that. I really feel
because nothing's come along that felt like it was the right one.
However, the way that this is being held, and I'm sensitive to not wanting to assume anything for you, but the way women often hold this lament, because trust me, this is a lament that I have heard consistently, and I feel how painful it is, because in this, there's still a way where the power is out there. Here I am, this beautiful woman who's educated, self-aware, and because there's, call it, not enough conscious men, whatever the reason is, there's some, in how a lot of women hold it, is that they're powerless to change their circumstances around it.
But I don't think, I'm not going to speak for Gina, though I kind of have the feeling, I think we're open to it. I haven't put a wall up and go, every man is like this. And so I'm going to approach every date I have, every correspondence with a man that could be a potential.
But that's the secondary. That's the secondary.
I don't approach it that way.
Well, it's, what we, again, giving context for this, the way that I view relationship is that it's a psycho-spiritual journey. Relationships are the vehicles that point us in the direction, that mirror where maybe our shadows may be playing out, where we might be deeply connected to some belief that we don't deserve, or we're alone, or we'll never have our needs met, or that he's not out there. Like, it's different for everyone.
Right.
And so again, all I can speak to is just, the realm that I've probably passed about 2,000 women through my programs here. I've been in this industry for 20 years.
Yes.
So
So
I can
you
just speak
see
to
it all.
my,
Yeah.
well, I know my piece of the pie.
Yeah.
I don't want to assume that I know what's best for everyone. However, so what I found is that the common approach is looking at, it's more on the how am I dating versus looking at what is the story that I'm consistently telling myself about my dating experience, whatever that might be, and how am I reinforcing it? Because what we find is a lot of times we have these deeply held stories that men aren't trustworthy, or I can't trust myself, or there aren't any good men. And then we look for evidence out in the world that reinforces the story. And then we're gathering the evidence, which is like corroborating the story that we're holding. And
holds us back.
and then we behave in ways that are consistent. We feel certain things, we think certain things, and make choices that are consistent with the story that we're holding about the likelihood of meeting men being next to zero, or next to nothing.
Makes sense. It
Right.
it definitely makes sense.
And I would say that's right, and to a certain extent, and that's part of what I think I brought up before. And I feel as if through this adventure, that I have evolved. I think in the very beginning, I was looking for a carbon copy of my ex-husband without some of the issues that he had. And then I was just looking for fun. And then I was looking for something different. And then I was very judgmental about, what kinds of, the education, the shoes, the whatever it was. And now I'm just sort of, I just sort of feel like I've got this great life. And if somebody comes along and if they're a good human being, let's start there. Let's start out with just, a good human being, and let's see where that takes us, right? I think that's really important,
I have to
too.
concur. I mean, like, I kind of give every man I meet a clean slate. And Gina knows, I will go out, even hesitantly, I'll go out on a second date to give the opportunity to not have any preconceived junk from all my experiences. And I think I've mentioned this before to you, but I've had well over 200 dates. So I've had some experience in this. And I like when there's something maybe there, I don't want to just throw it away. I want to give opportunity. I don't want to gather the things from my experiences in the past and throw them at this new person in this new beginning. I want to give it its own fairness, its own opportunity to maybe connect. And I'll give 2, 3, maybe even 4 dates before I realize that, or maybe he realizes. I've had that experience too, where I feel more connected and thought he was too, and then he kind of goes that way. But I will give it opportunity. I try to approach everything in fairness and from a clean slate, and knowing that my criteria has changed over the years with that feeling of looking for that one true, lasting love. And yet I keep having these misses.
And what's your sense behind that? Knowing yourself, knowing how aware you are, where do you sense your opportunity is? Because the gig here is that there's always the question of what's my part in this? And I don't know why
in everything
life
in life,
was
right?
even set up like this. It just was. So if all of this, with what you just said, was here to support you in your learning and your growth overall, what do you sense you're here to learn and grow from having these experiences, these 200 dates?
Well, I think for me, it's an elimination process, really. It's getting down to, and what I was saying at the beginning of the introduction, criteria or bullet points. I have been able, it's clarification. I've been able to clarify more. This is what I'm looking for. I haven't created a model that's unrealistic. I've only created a model that's correct for me. And based on the 35 years of a person that I was with, the things that kind of in the end were our downfall, and take, I don't want to recreate that, of course. So I that was a learning process. I've took that, some of those, my kids will tell you, oh, you're a different person than you were when you were married to dad, that kind of thing. I've learned a lot. I've changed a lot. I've done a lot of work on myself from the inside out, from the outside in, just to be a more evolved human being as I've grown over this last 10 years. But right now, I've twiddled it down, to criteria of what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not willing to accept.
Beautiful.
And when I meet somebody and they're in that not willing to accept category, I have to push them aside so I can move on. I don't want to waste their time or my time. So I date very little now. I mean, I think it's been 3-4 months since that picture from Halloween. I think it's been 2 dates, and one with the same man twice. I gave him some opportunity, and it just, everything I thought on the first date got proven on the second. So I just...
So that's one thing that
yes.
I hear, supporting you and clarifying your values.
Yes.
And it sounds like that's where you're at, too. Because so many women date outside of their values because there is this wishful thinking of, if there's connection or chemistry, we'll just make it work.
I've been through that.
Which
that's
so many women have.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
you learn from that.
So you learn from it, you evolve, and
So let me ask you this, because sometimes, and again, if we're under the assumption that life is here to support us in our awakening, in our learning and growing, so we can be more of who we truly are as radiant divine beings. If we're under that sort of shared assumption, sometimes life brings to us things where we might say that we want this, call it a loving relationship, but in reality, we're experiencing the opposite because sometimes we're having sort of competing intentions. We say we want this, but we're scared that this will cost us this or mean this.
Of course.
So when you think of it in that way, why do you think maybe you haven't, met the next love of your life? If there was a part of you that was worried or concerned that this relationship that you want would cost you your autonomy, your independence.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
Because
you
don't want to risk heartbreak again.
Yeah. There's all of that.
Yeah.
Right? So the longer you live on your own, the more you like it.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking for everybody, but for me, that's true. From the time I was sort of 19 on, I had one man in my life. We didn't live together until we got married, but we were married for 26 years. So for 26 years, I had to answer to somebody, I had to cook for somebody, I had to clean for somebody, and it was a give and take, definitely. We raised the kids together. It was and suddenly I lived by myself, my dog and I, and if I want my house clean, it's going to be clean. If I want it dirty, bathroom is going to be, I like that. And the longer you do it, the more you get used to it. And the more, when you look at somebody, you go, could I live in a situation with, even if you started dating somebody, and I've had months-long relationships, up to 6 months with one person, that, what would this look like if? And I do have some blocks against that throw me into, okay, not that I'm going to sabotage the relationship, but throw me into, I don't want to move forward. There's just the thought
Are they blocks or is it just your awareness?
It's awareness.
It sounds discerning.
It's awareness, but I don't think I've met anybody that I feel, okay, this is how I really feel. I'm going to know it. When people go, what are you looking for? And I always say, I'll know it when I find it.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I mean, I already had one significant relationship. I was in love with this guy, but he lived in Canada. It was a long distance relationship. And after a year and a half, I tried to push it ahead, and he was not ready. And so, and we split up. But I thought that could work, but you can't have just one person who's ready if the other person is not.
I've had that in situations too, where I was willing to explore that next step of, hanging out with each other a lot more at each other's places and getting just kind of growing into that, as opposed to abruptly moving in with somebody. But I was willing to explore that. But the further away I get now into this 9th year, the easier it's getting to just say, oh, once you hit over 60, the group, the pool of men out there, we were talking about this, we're overlapping dating people. We've dated some of the same people. Our friends have dated some of our friends. I've dated the people that they've dated. And, once you start talking to these other single women, you realize that it's a small pool of men that are out there that are available within a certain age range that are, putting themselves out there to be in the dating scene. And, so there's a part of you that just goes, oh, screw it, I'm just going to walk away from this. And like right now I am definitely, this year I'm working on my career more than my looking for a relationship.
But I think that's exactly what I have done and continue to do. I am dating someone now, but dating, we've been on 4 days.
Well, that's dating.
Yeah, it's dating. So I finally came to the conclusion that to put so much effort into dating was putting far too much energy in something that was just frustrating me, and that a better bet was to put all that energy into me and to develop some other things in my life that gave me pleasure, that broadened the way that I looked at the world, and it made me happy.
Yeah, and you've had success at that.
Yeah,
we've worked together.
And what's your process for dealing with the frustration energy and the disappointment energy? Because I've heard you mention, I can so appreciate it.
Sure.
But how do you therapeutically or in yourself to actually process it out of your system so that doesn't keep coming up? Do you have a practice for that?
I don't have I guess not. I'm very physically active. So I guess that's one way. Another way is I have a huge network of friends.
Yeah.
It's another way.
All over the world, too, which is very cool.
I travel. I really,
But it's more, again, we are psychological beings. Our psychology is made up of our mental level, which is our thoughts, our beliefs, our assumptions, an emotional level, frustration, disappointment, feelings of heartbreak, and behavioral level, the choices we're making or saying yes or no to. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this is for you, but sometimes we need help on the emotional level, clearing emotional charge that gets stuck in repetitive, and I'm seeing your scowl a lot. So it might not be for you, but being one that's been in the psychological industry professionally for decades.
I've done it. I've done it. I did it for years.
Sometimes we find, and this is interesting, a lot of women get really attached to the story that it's hard.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that here in the room.
I'm going to agree with you on that. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I mean, me throwing my hands up in the air saying I give up, that's me attached to a story. And, I know Gina has a little bit of a different story in this, but my ex has had 2 serious girlfriends that he's lived with, and he's living with somebody now. And it's kind of like, why is it so easy for him? That even makes me want to throw my hands up in the air, just going, it just, for me, there's a part that just says it's going to, you hear all these things where you're out, we even did this in the workshop, going out into the grocery store and just being conscientious and being aware that there are probably prospects around there and being open. I've been that way since day one, since I've been single. I'm an open person as it is. I've always talked to men and women alike, no matter what situation I'm in or what environment I'm in. But I've been much more open as a single woman to meet other single men organically versus, online or on an app. And yet that isn't happening. So you just kind of go, okay, screw it.
Well, and the thing is, I would say to address your question, I go in and out. I mean, so if it gets too frustrating, if it gets too frustrating, I think, all right, I'll take a little bit of time off and concentrate on something else. And then when I'm feeling like, okay, it's time to address that again or to go back out there because I feel like, okay, I'm not frustrated anymore. Life is great. It's wonderful. Not that it wasn't before. It's just that particular avenue was feeling a little bit like, it was just not working at that moment. So Yes, of course. There are probably stories that I tell myself, and nobody's perfect.
But your stories are always based on your experiences, right? And they keep you from doing things that are illegal, or they keep you from doing things like if you get pulled over and you've had a drink that night and you get pulled over and you have a sobriety test, but you pass it, you're not going to ever have a drink again and drive. You know what I mean? Like, that's your story. It will keep you from moving forward. Those are blocks. Those are things that will stop you from doing that behavior again. So with the dating world, it's kind of the same thing. If you've had a situation, you're going to stop yourself from creating that situation again.
Well, and that, there are many approaches to everything. So in my experience in this area, it's keeping a keen eye on what's happening inside of my internal landscape. And that's where my work is. So if I'm thinking thoughts that are telling me something is impossible, I want to clean that up. If I'm revolving around feelings of mistrust or disappointment or anger or blame, I want to clean that up. If I'm doing things, dating people that I know it might not be a good fit, or I'm bypassing my red flags, I want to clean that up. So it's to the degree we all play, the game of life in the way that we play it in accordance to what our unique destiny path is as governed by our soul. I know for me, as one that, attempted suicide twice, I've been in mental institutes, I've been kidnapped, I have been raped numerous times, I have had near-death experiences. It's like I've been around the block of life.
Big time.
Big time. And I say it just from a sense of personal authority.
Yeah.
But no, there is levity to it. I don't know what is best for others. I know what's worked for me, and for people that attempt this approach, we're going for liberation internally. So we have more moments of feeling good.
Yes.
So we have more moments of feeling, we have choice here. More moments of life reflecting to us what's wonderful about us. Because the reality is relationship is a sacred mirror. We want a relationship that reflects to us our light, our glory, all of the wonderful things about us. Most of us on the planet actually have relationships that reflect our shadow, our fear, our insecurity, our uncertainty, our unhappiness. And so however the creator, created this beautiful life of ours, it seems to be that the path of cleaning up our proverbial backyard, our inner landscape, leads to having more peaceful, harmonious experiences in life. How do we know that there's an opportunity for something to clean up inside? We look to the experiences of our life. If we're having chronic breakdown, or, if we're broke all the time, or if we're totally dating duds all the time, or we're sick all the time, we look to that to learn from it.
So I know it's so individual, but can we, for Gina and I and the greater audience, which I'm sure a lot of women who are in the dating scene over 40 are the ones that are watching us today, and can make a comment, by the way, on my Facebook page where Gabriella or myself or even Gina will get back to you if you want. What are some tips? What can we do to clean that up? That landscape that's blocking us. What do we do?
Again, so it's a psycho-spiritual journey. We look for the mental levels, the emotional levels, the behavioral levels, and spiritual levels, because these are all the levels that we're relating to relationship through.
Right.
So we look at my thoughts. What am I assuming? What am I expecting? What's that narrative that's just below the surface that's, that's saying, oh, here it is again, or I'm so frustrated, or, whatever. What's the narrative? How are we talking and bonding with our girlfriends? A lot of women bond over how miserable they are in their dating life.
I hear it all the time.
Right?
Yeah.
So we pay attention.
That's why I'm doing the show. Yeah.
So we pay attention to the voice in our head, and we pay attention to what is our language patterns. We move to the emotional level. We look at how do I feel? How do I not only what am I actively getting triggered on? Am I experiencing a consistent level of blame or hurt or defensiveness or whatever that might be? How do I also feel about the whole thing? Because sometimes the way that we relate to dating is actually the path. So if our relationship to love right? Because dating is about love. So if our relationship with love feels contentious or difficult or disappointing or hard, there's something in there on the emotional level that usually with a trusted guide, there might be parts of us that stopped developing as a little girl because painful thing happened, whatever it might be. But it's like we have these parts of ourselves that get frozen in time emotionally, and we might be walking around in a 45, 65, 75-year-old body, but there might be an 8-year-old in there that's really sad about something or really scared about something. So we do the emotional work. Again, we start paying attention to how do I behave when I'm in relationship with men, even dating or out in public. We look at I call them our dating and relating red flags. Like, what are the red flags that I know for me when I was really doing this work in myself, I had to get really clear on what were the things that I fell for. Like, what were my red flags? And I had to get really clear. One of my red flags is I would draw in men that were chronically unavailable, and I would be the one that was pursuing them. So one of my red flags was if I reach out for connection and he does not reach back, that's a red flag. That tells me I'm already in slippery territory. Got to stop it.
Yes.
Or another red flag for me was being led by sexual chemistry. I would, before knowing what I needed for emotional safety with this person, I would get in bed with them or I'd be sexual with them. I didn't know any different. So I needed to learn what I needed to set up for emotional criteria before I could be sexual with someone.
Right.
So each of us have our own dating and relating red flags that tell us that we might be in the territory that's just going to pull us down. And so we become more aware of that. And then finally, spiritually, it is this relationship with, again, love itself, to the degree that we hold God or life or the universal as a punitive, unfair force, or to the degree that we deeply believe that there's a benevolent, loving force that is guiding us, looking out for us, and can help us open perhaps where we've been closed, can help us heal whatever we've been holding on to, can work with us to bring us more experiences of loving and compassion and gentleness. I know for me, that was the clinch in all of this and all of the pain that I went through. I had to learn how to find my heart. And I had to learn how to bring my heart, my own compassion and empathy to myself when I was struggling. And I struggled a lot. I mean, what it took for me to put these things, just in my own inner landscape, to come into a place of feeling like I could back myself up and not lose myself in love was a heroic effort. And so much of it is learning how to soften our hearts towards our struggle here. Yeah. Like we sit in this room we all know heartbreak. We all know the pain of feeling betrayed or disappointed, or someone that we entrusted let us down, or, whatever it is. And so there is this place here of how can we soften our hearts towards what has been, what is happening now, and move forward in ways that are more in the direction of what we want more of. How can we hold positive thoughts? How can we work with our upset feelings that come up in a way to process them through so they don't need to keep recycling? And how can I start, behaving in ways that are in alignment with what I want more of? Right. So it's a rich journey.
I was going to say it's process.
It's rich,
yeah. It's very rich.
It's very rich.
Yeah. So,
and there's also some chance and some luck involved, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I think you can. It's something. I think love is something, or that connection is something you can find at any age, really. Right?
Oh, I think it's available.
At any age.
So, at any age.
Yes. So there's some universal things I think at any age, but then again, I think, and for Gina and I, we're over 60, so within our dating pool, criteria is a little different in that the men that are within our dating pool, we don't want to be caretakers. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be,
Right, but even that is an assumption that you would call it a man that you needed to caretake.
But that's just a red flag,
Right.
So,
but even notice, because that's some of the things that we need to pay attention to. But that tells us maybe where there's some opportunity for us to, because it sounds like you were a caretaker in your marriage.
Well, maybe emotionally, not physically.
Right.
But now I'm talking more physically. We don't want. If our pool is men 65 or 70
My
and
Nicholas
up,
is 27 years older than me.
Right, but I still think he's younger than me.
He's incredibly
No, yes.
vibrant.
Right, exactly.
He's incredibly vibrant, but I'm in my mid-40s. He's 27 years older than me. And so I could be saying the same thing.
Yes.
Of I don't want...
And I give
Right?
every individual the opportunity. It's just so because we're running out of time, I'm going to ask you. So, meeting somebody online, you can't quite tell what their health, whether or not they're showing you pictures that are actually accurate to today. And then you meet them and they're overweight, which to me is a red flag that says they're not taking, because my business is health and wellness. I'm very active like Gina is. And I don't want to be with somebody who isn't in that vein, like your Nicholas is. It doesn't. I'm not necessarily talking about age. I'm just talking about men are more likely. People are more likely the older they get to take less care of themselves or pay attention to things that need extra attention
Yes.
as we age, because that's what happens as we age. Things slow down, so we have to be very conscientious of that. So I that for me is eliminating a whole sector of my dating pool.
And it's beautiful. And what I'm simply suggesting is that whatever our inner reality is, what we're assuming, what we're thinking, what we're believing, is typically outpictured in what's happening around us. So our point of power is looking at, what am I assuming? What am I believing? What am I doubting is even possible for me? This is what we can clean up, because usually the life around us is reflecting to us how we're holding, where we're holding deeply held old messaging, beliefs about our worth and lovability, rules of lovability, expectations of what relationship will cost us.
Okay.
And typically the more we, just like any beautiful garden, the more we go in there and pluck out the weeds, and we, fertilize these soul-centered seeds that we're planting of loving relationship, we pluck out the weeds, we discover what the nutrients are that we need to feed ourselves with. Maybe we decide to stop, talking badly about men with our girlfriends. Maybe that's one thing where I'm like, I'm not going to, I'm not going to fertilize that plant anymore. Instead, I'm going to speak positive messages to myself that tell me that love is possible for me. Love is available for me.
Right.
And so we just look at what is our part so we can keep our garden, in a good, in a beautiful, that allows for the greatest bloom to occur. And then I think, to your point of what you were saying about luck, to me, I hold it as whatever is for the highest good. For some of us, it is within our path to have loving relationship. For others, it's not. Right.
Yeah.
And that's between us and our creator as to what our life path is.
Really? Okay, so to be conscientious, to clean up the thoughts that are our blocks, what would be the first and foremost thing? I mean, do we do it through meditation?
No.
Okay.
This is not, we don't exercise it away. We don't meditate it away. We don't vision board it away.
Okay.
This is, right? Like these are well-intentioned responses. We literally look at, what are the contents of my mind? When I think of this thing, I'm over 40, I'm dating. When I think of my dating experience, what comes up? What do I doubt? What am I assuming? What are the concerns that come up? What are the frustrations that come up? And then we mine that. Okay. So it's an inner exploration of, what is the story that I'm telling myself about the likelihood that I will meet, that I will have lasting love. We start there.
Okay. I mean, I don't know about you, Gina, but I always have, I'm going to find that one true one.
Beautiful.
I have said that from day one.
I do too.
And
I have
Beautiful.
no doubt about it, because I've had those experiences, and not just once.
And it really helps too, because it helps you get to where you are. It's helped you get to where you are today, as well as me, because we won't make those same stumbles again, and the intention has always been strong for us.
Beautiful.
And a lot of my girlfriends, but you're right, there is, when people, it's like anything else in life, when somebody starts ragging on one thing, we all kind of get on that bandwagon, whether it's politics, health, what we've got going on with the coronavirus right now. Somebody gets going and we all get going, and we all kind of create this cloud of it around us. So that can happen in romance and dating life.
Carl Jung has a wonderful saying, which I might botch it here, but it's something like, until we make the unconscious conscious, When I say unconscious, it's like, what are these deeply held beliefs or assumptions that are below conscious mind? We have to excavate for them. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will run our life, and we will call it fate.
Okay.
So if just below the surface of awareness, there is this belief that says, I don't deserve love. Usually our conscious mind isn't going to be able to call it up right now. If I say, Debbie, do you believe you deserve love? You're going to say yes. But without some level of, exploration and discovering and unearthing, we follow the cues of where we have doubt or concern or apprehension. Then we unearth whatever's been in our unconscious that's been guiding our life that we call fate. And Carl Jung is the master of shadow work. And so much of relationship is such a beautiful invitation for us to go in, do our shadow work, put to rest any story that tells us that we're separate from the loving experience of relationship that we long for, to put it to rest. So that way we can experience the love that comes from long-lasting committed union. It's the best thing ever on the planet,
Right.
in my opinion.
Well, and the thing is, one of the stories that I tell myself is you walk out on the street and you see people who are young, old, fat, thin, they from all walks of life in relationships, and you say to yourself, if it's out there for everyone.
Yes.
That's right. It is. And
everyone
we have to
deserves it.
wrap this up. It's been a full, I want to end with a final thought from both of you. Gina, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to have you kind of take it home for us, Gabriella, if that's okay. And then I'm going to, and I want you also to tell the audience how to get a hold of you for those that are listening and can't see on the screen. So Gina, what are some final thoughts that you have? A final word, a sentence?
Well, I guess that Gabriella has given me a couple of things to think about.
Good.
And I will do that, and just keep thinking and working and mining my interior self, and just see where it takes me.
Terrific. Thank you. And thank you for being here today, too. And Gabriella.
And, I think we're talking about love and our relationship to love. And so that is a rich and multi-faceted thing for all of us.
To say the least.
And so, but what a worthy dedication and devotion to explore how can I let love in, and how can I be more loving and have in an inner landscape that is filled with more moments of loving energy. And so it's such a beautiful pursuit.
It really is, and one that we shouldn't throw away, for sure, because that's a universal language.
Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you, get into your workshops, work with you privately, and all of that? I want them to be able to.
Visit my website at GabriellaTaylor.com, and you'll find all sorts of goodies there.
Yeah, it's a beautiful website. I recommend it highly. And I want to thank you, my audience, for sticking around today to get this valuable conversation going. I hope you found your value in it. And if you want to make a comment, because a lot of people listen to the show afterwards, my YouTube channel is Balanced Life by Debbie at YouTube, or you could go to my Facebook page, Fit by Design, otherwise known as Balanced Life. The show is on there. Make a comment, ask a question. We'll get back to you. We'd love to hear from you post-show. I get a lot of comments post-show, and I love to hear from you. So go do that. And remember, I am Tuesdays a month, the second and fourth Tuesday. So I'm going to see you right back here in 2 weeks at 2 p.m. And remember to go out and keep finding those conversations that connect to a healthier you. Bye, everybody, and thank you, my guests. Thank you. Bye.